Hello, everybody. My name is Caitlin Douglas. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I am the operations manager for the Alliance for Nonprofit Impact. And today we are going to be talking about kind of leveling up your 401 Gives campaign for next year, early successes that you can have. And then we're going to hear from our friends at Save One Soul Animal Rescue League because they had quite the increase from 2024 to 2025. Um, just as always, a thank you to our 2025 sponsors. 401 Gives doesn't exist without a lot of reasons and folks, but that is especially true for our sponsors. These are the folks that do all of our prizes and matching money, so thank you to them. And then a really quick agenda. So, first, we're going to start on how to start strong, your early best practices, your profiling level up. And then we're going to hear from Emma and Trish at SOS. And then finally, there's going to be some open air time for Q&A for me, for Emma, for Trish, really any questions that you have, you can ask. Feel free to pop those questions in the chat along the way if you need to write them down and get them out of your brain, but we'll do all of that question and answer at the end. And as I mentioned before, this is a recorded session, so if you have to jump off for any reason, you'll be able to finish that recording elsewhere. Before we get into talking about our topic, it's no secret that 401 Gives was immensely successful this year, and that is not without you all. You are the nonprofits that make up 401 Gives. Without the work that you all do, a Giving Day would cease to exist. And because of you all, we were able to break every single record there was. This is a small snippet of what there is to exist, but for the first time ever, we raised 1 million more than we did in a previous year. We were up by 31,000 donations. We had 19,000 donors, and there was 644 organizations with funds that came in. So that is all thanks to the work that you all do and continue to do. Um, so to start, we're going to talk about leading with success and early best practices for starting off 401 Give season strong. So my first recommendation for a best practice is to register as early as possible. Registration opens every single year in November. And so these are going to be some of your most accessible prices. They're going to be your lowest prices. They are also when me and the GiveGab team are most accessible. We have the most bandwidth to help you with any of your questions, to meet with you one-on-one, especially myself, to strategize with you. I love to sit down with the nonprofit and really think about how you can do this to the best of your abilities. But the longer that you wait to register and the farther you push it until really March, that bandwidth goes down. Um, Last year, we had Nonprofit Appreciation Month in November, where registration was $4.01. It was the lowest registration fee that we've ever had, and only about 115 out of all 665 that signed up took advantage of that. That $4.01 registration is something that I do believe that we plan to do again. But no matter what, register early and get your kind of ducks in a row as soon as you can. That also looks like establishing roles amongst staff and volunteer, and then establish backups and supports for those roles. Once we start getting closer to February and March, a lot of the emails that I'm answering is that so and so left or so and so is sick. And while these things are not necessarily things that we can pinpoint and predict, we can establish backups for those things. If you know that someone's planning a vacation or heading into the next 401 Gives, if you know that someone has left their role, deal with that head on, especially since we can access previous profile years. If you're an organization where your marketing person left and you're unsure if you're going to participate in 401 Gives 2026, you can still change the admin permissions now just in case you do want to participate. And that way you're ahead of the ball on things. You also want to decide what you're campaigning for in the 401 Gives upcoming season. And so, are you making a specific ask? Are you tying it into something that you already have going on? 401 Gives does not have to be a separate campaign. It can be a giving tool that you tie to something that you already have going on. And so that could be an additional campaign that you're just using 401 Gives as a path for people to give to, especially when we look at matching money and prizing money. Do you have an event going on or an appeal that you can tie 401 Gives into? Can you use 401 Gives in your capital campaign? There are ways in which 401 Gives can just be an addition and not necessarily a separate thing. I also always encourage nonprofits to make a specific ask on their 401 Gives page. especially as you start to rack up years of participating in 401 Gives. If you're using kind of a blanket story and a blanket ask, when donors come back to your page year over year, they're going to see that and they may move on to an organization that's making a specific ask. Some continued best practices. Um, Identify peer to peer fundraisers early, educate them and introduce them to the platform, and then start to watch the 401 Gives peer to peer trainings, as well as looking at some of the information that's out there. Sometimes it takes a minute for people to adjust to a platform, to adjust to using new technology. And the earlier that you can educate and introduce somebody to a peer to peer platform, the better off they're going to be. And also, you can start to create a communication plan with them. So, what do you want them to be saying? What do you want them to be posting? What do they want to post? And do they want to have creative freedom within it? Um, in the most recent 401 Gives, we have a quick stat. Organizations with peer to peer fundraisers raised on average about 16,000, almost $17,000 when they had those peer to peer fundraisers. If they didn't have those peer to peer fundraisers, they raised only about an average of 3,500. There's a significant difference of about $13,000 there when you're introducing peer to peer fundraisers. Now imagine if you're getting them early and are getting them prepped, how much more successful you can be with them. You also want to start to create a communication plan. What are you posting? When are you posting? And how much of that can be scheduled? We all know that not everybody has a large marketing team that can just take on this giant project, because we know that 401 Gives is not a light lift. But if you start creating that communication plan early and you can start to schedule things out, if you start to think about it a couple months ahead of time instead of, oh no, 401 Gives is 3 weeks away and we need to post something, it's going to be much easier and a much lighter lift. Um, you also want to engage your followers not just through 401 Gives. This is a time for you to gain followers and donors and volunteers in a way that makes them want to stay with your organization because they feel connected to you in some sort of way. So don't just post about 401 Gives, sprinkle it in there. But this is a way for you to create a communication plan that's going to reach your intended audience across the board. And also work with your partner organizations on 401 Gives. There is no rules saying that you have to do 401 Gives by yourself. Most recently, this past year, we had sort of a cohort that self-built themselves. It was a lot of the environmental organizations. There's about 12 of them, I believe, and they got together and they met once every 2 to 3 weeks, and they were just sharing their images, they were sharing their thank yous, they were giving updates on how each other was doing. And then when they did those thank yous on the giving day, they were shouting each other out because they knew that their work isn't done without tandem of somebody else. And so that's an option for you. If you have organizations in your community or in your topical area that you work with all of the time or that you know you could work with, reach out to them, ask them if they're participating in 401 Gives, and see if you can combine your brains and do that work together. Matches and challenges looks for ways to secure private matches. So we offer matches site wide on 401 Gives, but most recently in the past year, or the most recent 401 Gives that we did, our morning match went in about 6 seconds. Our afternoon match went in 6 seconds. And then the one after that went in 9 seconds. And so we know that that money does not last for a long time. And we're always looking to secure more and more matching funds. But you can also secure private matching funds for your profile specifically. And so think about if you have a yearly large donor, and large within respect to what you and your communities and your donors think is large. That is not a one size fits all word. Um, Can your board put together funds if they all give a donation? Do you have a flexible grant or foundation money that can be partially allocated towards matching funds for 401 Gives? A lot goes a long way, even just a $500 matching opportunities. I know that we see, the 25K that we put up on the site or some of the larger numbers that larger nonprofits put up, but even just a small amount can encourage a donor to give a little bit larger. They can give again. And you're just encouraging a donor to come back to your profile. And you can also start that stewardship now. If you have a donor that you know gives to you in July, or you get, again, flexible money in July, you can ask to hold that until the springtime and see if you can use it then. There's really no rules around this kind of stuff. And again, a quick stat from the most recent 401 Gives. Organizations with matches and challenges raised on average about $29,000, almost 30,000, and without matches and challenges raised only about 4,000. This is a skewed number because we know that matches are not one size fits all. And so while some organizations have a match of $50,000 and other organizations have matches of 500, there is still a noticeable difference between those who have that extra boost for their donors and those who don't. We're also going to talk about some profile upgrades right now. I'm going to talk about a main one that I think is really important and really beneficial, and then just a couple of additional pieces. And then we're going to talk to Emma and Trisha. So, one of my favorite parts of the GiveGab profile is that you can add something called a support area. It's in your dashboard. It is definitely something that takes a little bit of work. So, the earlier you start it, the better. But a support area is a space to showcase your organization's campaigns and programs, and it gives them their own page. So, the example that I used to use was Children's Friend. So, Children's Friend is an educational organization, and they have multiple locations for their schools. And so, they would give each school a support area. And it's important because donors can see further into your organization and it promotes donor choice. So they can go in and choose to give to a specific program or specific location or campaign or initiative, whatever you're setting up on there. And each support area shows up on the search page. So the screenshot that I have on this slide right here is the 15-minute field trips. So 15-minute field trips has two support areas on their page from 2025. And this is something that you can go and look at now since the site is still live if you're interested. Um, so what you see in the colored is their base profile showing up 15-minute field trips. And then on both sides, you have a support area. So that means when I search up 15, if I was to put in the word museum, 15-minute field trips comes up. And so you have more accessibility on that search page and you're going to show up more times. Like I had said before, each search page functions as its own page. So you can put its own images, thank yous, stories. You can put specific peer to peer fundraisers that are attached to these pages. So if you have a board member that's really supportive and interested in a specific campaign that you have, they can be a peer to peer fundraiser for that exact initiative. And it's just letting people peer a little bit further into your organization in a way that I think will capture them a little bit more. Um, like I said, it's not a light lift, so it's something that you want to start working on early, like probably December, January, just to give yourself enough time to be strategic about it, to really think about what sport areas you want to add and why, and then enough time to build those pages out so that they're eye-catching and look aesthetic. I've also linked a help article on this slide that you can click that walks you through the process of setting up a support area. um, these slides will be attached in the Alliance newsletter as well as the recording for the YouTube channel. And just lastly, some additional profile upgrades. When you are creating your thank you email for 401Gives, consider adding a video, whether it be from your staff, from your volunteers, from your clients that you serve, if you're able to capture some video from them. One, I think it's a really personal touch and it's really nice to see. But also, there's so much happening on 401Gives and there's so much to read that if a donor can open up their thank you email and just see the video from you, I think it's going to be a little bit easier on them and they're going to engage with it a little bit more. I would also recommend to add a give again message for the give a little more function. So, the give a little more function is something that we added on about 2 years ago. And for donors who log into the site, it gives them their giving history and it asks them to make a 10% increase on their gifts from previous years to those organizations that they gave to. And so when you add a give again message, it's adding a specific call to action for that donor to give to you again and why. And so you can talk about why it's important to increase your gift. You can say thank you so much for increasing your gift. You can add a video as well. And so it's just another personal touch that gives that one-to-one authentic touch for the donor. You can add engagement opportunities to continue your relationship with the donors. There's a piece on your profile dashboard that allows you to add any engagement opportunities. So these could be events, these could be volunteer opportunities, and it's a way for donors to go to your page after 401 Gives is over and say, how can I continue my relationship with this organization? How can I meet up with them again? What kind of things are they doing? And so it's a good little addition for afterwards. And then you can utilize the support article search on the Bonterra website for more information about all of those things. But if you just have general questions or you're looking for ways to increase the usage of some of the functions that you're already using, you can go in and find different support articles in there so that you can kind of up your game in whatever part you're already good at. So that was my kind of 15-minute quick hit of the ways that you can increase the way that you use your profile, how early you can start. There is also, I'm going to drop a link in the chat on our nonprofit toolkit, which if you are not familiar with the nonprofit toolkit, you should check it out before your next 401 gives. There is a communication guidelines. And so this starts you, I believe it's 13 weeks before the giving day. And it gives you a template of all of the things that you should be thinking about, talking to your staff about, and a place to write them down. I would highly encourage that you take this presentation and that template and sit down with your main team, whoever that may be, and whoever it could be, and decide on what want your next 401 gifts to look like. Even if you're unsure, start with the template and see if it makes you even more sure about participating or if it opens you up to more questions that myself or the customer success team can answer. So now I'm going to stop sharing my screen and we are going to hear a little bit from Emma and Trisha from SOS. So let me also spotlight them as well. All right. So thank you both for being here. I'm very excited to hear from both of you. SOS in 2024 raised about $3,000, almost 4,000. And then most recently in 2025, SOS was able to raise 18,000, almost $19,000. That is a huge increase year over year, and it's something that we love to see when orgs happen. So we're going to hear a little bit from the both of you. And while I pull up my questions, if you both just want to introduce yourself, what you do at SOS, and who SOS is.
Will do. Great. Thank you. Thanks for having us. We're flattered to be featured here. I don't know that we have like a silver bullet answer, but we are more than happy to share what we think was successful for us this last year. And we love what the Alliance does and the resources that you guys bring to our Rhode Island community of nonprofits. So we're happy to help however we can, anyone else. My name is Emma Dolly. I am executive director and founder of Save One Soul. We are an all-breed dog rescue, foster-based, so we don't have a facility. We do have a for-profit pet supply store in Wakefield that is owned by the rescue, and all of the profits go back to the rescue. So we do have that as an additional source of income, as well as platform into the community. But a lot of what we do is also virtual, making connections with people over the phone, through email, through Zoom, that type of thing, as well as adoption events around the community and that type of thing. And then we have Trish here, who is our media coordinator, and she has been with the rescue. How many years have you been with us?
Over
6
six.
years. 6 years. And Trish took over the media for SOS about 3.5 years ago.
Yeah, about 3.
Yep. And we had pretty decent social media coordination and coverage. But she has also been she has been very assimilated into the organization and all of our many activities. And so she has brought a very personalized voice to all of our media communications. And I think that goes a long way, not just in general overall with media, but in this 401 Gives campaign that we did. I think having a very personalized tone and something that people can relate to on a personal level was really important. Trish, I don't know if there's anything else you'd like to say about yourself.
Yep. So, in addition to media coordinator, I'm also an adoption counselor. So I have that state of mind going into things as well. And especially during this campaign, I was able to tap into our other adoption counselors as part of our volunteer group that then helped us mobilize even further, and find even more success. So that's just an additional tidbit for you.
That's great. That's really great. So we already started kind of talking about it, but I know that we mentioned the dollar improvement. That's kind of the top on the list. But what kind of improvements did you see from this year to last year? And some that maybe just stuff that only you can see or feelings that you had, but what was different from last year to this year?
Coming from the Alliance and the resources provided, or just how we approached it?
Either or,
There
whatever
are
sticks out
okay,
to you.
okay,
Yeah.
okay. So I know I hate to admit this, but this is the first year that I ever actually looked at the prizes. And
Uh,
I just thought it was another quote Giving Tuesday type campaign. With there were some matching funds out there, but I didn't really understand how to get them. Um, and so looking at those prizes made all the difference, and actually spending time going through what is each prize. It can be overwhelming. You guys have identified a ton of opportunities. So going through each of those prizes, how they can be won, how the matches can be awarded, and kind of thinking and developing a strategy for what makes sense for our people. How are we going to get our people engaged? And that could be the over 5,000 adopters that we've had over the last 11 years. And or it could be the volunteers that we see day in and day out who are giving generously with their time already and are super invested in our mission and what we do. And it could also be how can we engage those businesses in the community that are already supporting us. And this is actually, I mean, this is not just an opportunity for them to give us money, but for them to also get some visibility, because this is such a nation, or not, sorry, statewide endeavor. You guys do a lot of promoting on the radio and whatnot. This is a great way for them to get some visibility, and so get rewarded in some ways for their support of us. So I think taking the time to look at that, and then also we had some support from 401Gives giving us, we had some questions and we got some really quick responses and some insightful ideas. So I would really encourage people to reach out to the Alliance. And like you said, Caitlin, earlier is better, because I'm sure you're swamped when it's the month before. But any questions you have, I mean, you guys are there to help us and support us. And you guys definitely did that this year. When we asked, we hadn't asked in the past, so we didn't get that support. I think we also, because we understood a little bit better, I think our messaging was improved. And Trish, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think part of that too is in years past, in approaching it as just an average giving day, we weren't as targeted with how we presented messaging and the timing of everything, which I believe made a world of difference. And we also focus more on collaboration with different folks. Emma and I met quite a few times within a short frame of time, to try and figure out a strategy that made the most sense and how we could both utilize ourselves as messengers. And I think that that was very important. And then also identifying every possible communication tool that we have. We even like thought about the idea of doing text messaging, which is something we didn't end up doing as like a mass text messaging to our contacts. But we were trying to lay everything out on the table and figure out where we could put things to be most effective. And then also being very strategic with repeating certain things to make them stick. Because some of this stuff can look a little bit daunting when you're just looking at it at face value, and it can be a little confusing. So spending all that time going through it and then trying to almost dumb it down in a way to make it so that the masses could have an understanding. Okay, I need to do this now. This is what I like. This is what they're looking for. So
Yeah.
that was a
And
big part.
we picked essentially four opportunities. So the prize list, the prize page is, I don't even know how many, 30 plus opportunities
Mhm.
are. We sifted through that and we identified four opportunities that we thought made sense for the people that we serve, the people that support us, the people that we felt we could reach. And yeah, we dumbed it down and focused on those four opportunities.
Mhm.
Yeah. I have like I call it my conspiracy theory wall because I have all my sticky notes up. That's how I organize the prizes, and everybody says that I need like some red tape. But we go back through and we count those, and there's 65 different opportunities on that prize page, which is it's
Wow.
crazy. It is a lot to look through.
Yeah.
It's
Mhm.
yeah, when you combine prizes and matches, it's about 65 to 70, which is it's a lot and it's a lot to go through. And I think that your strategy of taking those pieces and saying these are probably going to go really fast, but look what we're offering you instead is such a personal touch. And I think a way that you can steward donors afterwards because you're taking that second leap to make sure that they have a better experience on the giving day. And I think that's super cool.
Yeah.
Um,
One example with that is we grouped one of our large matches. So it was, I forget if it was like we needed 50 individual donations to unlock $500, which was before or which was during one of like the key matching times, which went
mhm.
in 6 seconds. But we were able to see where we were on that ticker of we need like 10 more people so we could then communicate that message and like with volunteers internally we were able to get them to take action by saying hey we need 10 more $5 donations, can somebody help us get the word out.
Yeah. Did you guys engage in peer-to-peer fundraising at all in this past campaign?
Not using your platform.
What did that
Yeah.
look like for you?
It was just talking amongst our connections. So like
Yeah.
within our internal volunteer group, an example, like we have a group chat with our adoption counselors. There's about 10 of us. And every time there was something big coming up, we would engage in a discussion. People would reach out to different people, and that 10 people turns into way more than 10 people if those 10 people take action.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
I think also we have a unique opportunity with how we're structured and what we do. So we place dogs into the community, and when a dog is placed in a home, we have multiple people usually who are involved in that connection,
mm,
and a lot of time those people stay in touch. So our foster homes who care for the dog often stay in touch with who adopted the dog, and they get updates, pictures, that type of thing. So I know, like, I personally like reached out. I fostered a lot of dogs, and some people stay in touch, some people don't, but those people that did stay in touch, I reached out to them, and I did do like a group text, but I made it look like and feel like it was a one-on-one text, and then followed it up with like, hey, how's Fluffy doing, like give her a belly rub for me, or I can't wait to see Deja again, this June when we have another play date,
yeah.
to make it personalized. But I was really heartwarmed by how many of those individual people that I reached out to who have no history of donating to us, actually, I'd like to say. Like, they've adopted from us, and they pay an adoption donation when they adopt, but no other, just straight up adoption or straight up donation, nothing in return. They had never done that before. And I was really happy to see that. And it was just maybe like a $5 donation, but that was super meaningful. It got them engaged. They felt like they were doing something good. Plus they saw how much we raised, and they felt really good about being part of us getting to that total dollar value that we raised.
That's awesome. That's so sweet to know that you're getting new donors, to know that people are so connected. I mean, that's really awesome. I do want to take a quick pause to remind the people that are watching. If you have any questions, you can pop them in the chat and we'll get to them in about the next like, I don't know, maybe 10 minutes or so, 15 minutes. But what did this work look like for you guys going into it? How long in advance did you plan? Did you not plan and that's okay? Like, what did this look like for you guys?
Trish?
so so every year going into it we bring it up in like January as something that's coming up, and we have like a strategy-ish meeting with action items, but because there's so many other things that go on for us over a period of time, it didn't take priority until about 2 to 3 weeks before the actual event day. And I think that's when Emma secured some of our offline matches. And then 5 days before is when her and I really crammed and like had spontaneous phone calls of, oh, let's do this. How about this? And just kind of crammed it all into probably the week before, which is not ideal and was very stressful because we spent a ton of time But we spent time. It was
Yeah.
necessary.
Yeah,
And I mean, we got positive R in dog language. We got positive reinforcement. You know, we really surpassed what we were hoping for. So I think we'll also have some motivation to start a little earlier. Plus, we've debriefed now and we've recorded what we did and what worked. And I think that is also going to help us going into the next 401 gives. We kind of like, we kind of have a layout of how we want to handle it.
that's great.
I will say one thing for folks that have organizations where you can prep things in advance, like content, not waiting until last minute and creating things would make a world of difference. Like I did a live with an adoptable dog. So that was very easy for me to be like, this is who you're helping. But you can't necessarily do that for everything, for every organization that's looking for funds. So it's trying to figure out that messaging, but also giving yourself time to put content together, especially if you have flexibility with what you're trying to get out there.
Can you talk a little more about the live with the adoptable dog? That is so cute.
Yeah, so we have a dog who's been with us for about a year now. And we had regular volunteers who were working with her during the week while her foster mom was at work, and it just so happened to fall in the middle of the day where she came to the store SOS Retail in the training room. And I just saw another one of our volunteers and was like, "Hey, can you and I just sit and have a conversation?" We had 401 Give mugs and we just kind of had a conversation. We were talking about the dog. We were talking about 401 Gives. It probably lasted like 5 minutes. But there were people on it who were listening, and we timed it so that we would go live within like an hour time frame of one of our touch points that we wanted people to pay attention to. And when we do go live, that notification pops up for people. So that was another way for us to be like, hey, we're doing something today. So it was just another way of showing what we're doing, and a communication strategy in addition to just communicating while we were in the live.
Yeah. What are some of the challenges that you face? So we had this, big jump, you did new things, but what were you still struggling with and what are you looking to adjust for next year?
Yeah, so Trish mentioned we did look into SMS blasting service. And I looked into it, I think like a week and a half before 401 gives. And it takes a while to get set up. So just anyone who's looking to do that, you have to get like approved and verified as an actual legit charity. And it can take up to 14 days to get added to that registry, up to 14 business days. So just keep that in mind. Plus, the two different platforms that we looked into to use for that, it's pretty darn expensive, depending on how many texts you're wanting to send out. So you really have to weigh the pros and cons. Do we think is there gonna be an ROI on that? In our case, like the schedule made the decision for us. There wasn't time for us to get on the registry. That being said, I do think we kind of employed like guerrilla SMS blasting individuals, like I described how I did it. And then when I sent those texts out, I also ended with, if you'd like me to remind you again 5 minutes before the give time, I'm happy to. So I would send out the text, 12, 24 hours in advance, give them a heads up, because sometimes people don't always look at their phones. And then half the people I texted said, I'll set a reminder on my phone, thank you. And the other half were like, yeah, I'd love a text right before. So that was not, there was some effort there, some lift on my part. That took a lot of time. I do think if we can, which I mean, this is probably wishful thinking, if we can block out some time around the campaign so that we're also not trying to juggle other things. Trish and I think we pushed ourselves really hard. We also got a little lucky in that we didn't have any other day-to-day emergencies that popped up during the campaign. If they had, they would have taken priority and we would have been completely derailed. So also having more people, like you mentioned early on in your presentation, Caitlin, having backups and having kind of resources aligned, that is never a bad idea. And that usually, the further ahead you can plan for that. And also that's another reason why peer-to-peer fundraising is could be so impactful is you have multiple people doing the same thing, and who knows, life throws somebody a curveball, but then you have somebody else who can step up and is doing their thing and they're going gung ho. Other challenges, Trish, can you think of any?
Let's see. I mean, I really think the main challenges were just figuring it all out. So like just trying to come up with and understand how 401 gives as a whole. But I feel like we finally got there. But just like looking back, we've been doing this since 2020. And it's gotten better for us every single year. But it's just taking the time to really figure it out and make sure that people understood it. So a big challenge was the figuring out the messaging in a way that stuck.
Yeah. And I do think, like, I think the stars really aligned for us too. Like, I think we worked hard. And we also, yeah, just got lucky. Like, things fell into place. We sometimes push them into place. We made it happen. But yeah, I think this campaign we got really lucky. I'm kind of nervous about next year. I'm like, we set the bar pretty high.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we kind of did that as a whole state because we have to
Yeah.
raise 5 million next year. Um, what
This is
does
this is
oh,
unrelated too, but not knowing too which one of our volunteers may have worked at an employer who did matching until day of with
mm,
something like we had a few folks at Brown who we didn't know until that morning, so they were already working and not having it in their heads of when to donate. So I think too, understanding which employers are potentially willing to do matches that are part of your volunteer base or the the main people that you're trying to hit that would donate to your campaign. So learning more about that and not knowing about it until day of, I think
yeah,
was a big thing.
that's good for us to know because as we're sending out kind of your what should you be doing for this month, that can be a point of reminder for
Yeah,
us
I
as
think it
well.
was Brown did it like first thing in the morning of that specific day. And
Yeah,
it was a large chunk of matching opportunity, but you had to act really fast and all
yeah,
that jazz. So
yeah. So as you kind of were in postseason 401 Gives, do you have any plans to, or have you already thanked donors again? How are you planning to steward them, talk to them, be in conversation with them?
Yeah. So that was something also that we thought of kind of at the last minute, like about I think 3 days before the campaign went live. I was like, oh, we got to think about how we're going to thank people when they give to us. Like that's totally not cool to ask for money, be successful, and then silence. Like that's just not cool. We have actually historically we've had a volunteer who it's been a different volunteer, but over time it's changed, but who does donor tracking and thank yous. And so I got her engaged, and again, like I said, the stars aligned. She was in town for the 8 days after 401 gives and then was going away
Ah,
on vacation. So I was like, you know what, that's fine. The sooner we get the thank yous out, the better. Do you think you can fit this in before you got to town? And she could. And so yeah, we very promptly downloaded the reports from your platform, which it makes it super easy. We identified, we prioritized two different types of donors: the large donors, like 200 plus per donation, and then also the people that we saw gave multiple times, even if it was just multiple times of $5. And
mhm.
we really wanted to thank them and acknowledge that we know they made an effort and it really made a difference. We did customize the thank you that was coming out from the 401 Gives platform, and immediately after somebody made a donation. We haven't talked yet, but I would like to do some kind of follow up with the people. We had talked about possibly identifying one way in which we are going to use the money or do use the money, and create some kind of story or graphic or that type of thing to follow up with folks in a few months that kind of says, hey, remember when you supported us and we did this amazing campaign? Well, this is why we did that, and this is what we've done with that money. So that is something that we want to do. Um, Trish, anything else on that?
Um, we did do thank yous, kind of generic thank yous in e-blasts that followed that weren't targeted, and then also on social media that weren't targeted. So we tried to hit on multiple points, but then the focused ones that Emma said, I think are definitely the ones that would have the biggest impact. But
Yeah.
trying to close the loop on social media campaigns and e-blast campaigns to acknowledge it's over, and we appreciate everyone that contributed.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
I
then the
love
personal texting too. Like, I mean, I can't control what other people do, but encouraging folks like, hey, thank you guys so much for reaching out to your people. Like, there was a huge outpouring of support. If you could just share our success with the people that you reached out to.
yeah.
And yeah.
I love the piece that you're talking about segmentation of like, yes, larger gift per se, but also who's giving again and again in those smaller increments. I think that there's room to get creative with segmentation because I know that I can tell when I've got an email blast that's generic. And so when a donor opens it up and can see that you've taken the time, even if it's just a few minutes to write them a separate thank you, it's going to follow them into the next year.
Mhm.
And we
Um,
actually did some handwritten note cards. Yeah, and actually, yeah. And and again, we looked, like, I went through every single person who donated, and when I recognized their name, I was like, "Oh my gosh, yeah, in 2015 they adopted Sparky." And so we included that note in their handwritten gift card, like, give Sparky a belly rub for us, that type of thing. And I think that makes a difference. I know it takes a ton of time. It absolutely does, but I think it really makes a difference. I think we were also on such a super high from how amazingly we did that it was like I really did want to thank them. Like, this wasn't
yeah.
just a job I was doing, or a task. Like, I was overflowing with gratitude, and I really wanted to share it.
Yeah, I think you're also hitting on a piece of include the people that are closest to the work when you're planning your campaigns. You being able to see those names and recognize these people who have adopted these specific dogs is not information that everybody is always able to hold. And so if you're an organization that has frontline workers, bring them in so that they can
Mm.
give advice on how to add that personal touch. Sometimes we remove ourselves a little bit from direct service, especially in a larger organization. And so bring the folks in who are doing the work every day because they're going to tell you how to add in those personal touches. And that's so sweet. I can't imagine getting a handwritten card that says, "Thank you for adopting this dog and donating." That's very sweet.
Oh, actually, one other thing there. Trish and I had talked about sharing that entire donor list with the people that we knew we had reached out to, kind of in this fluid peer-to-peer fundraising way.
Mhm.
We were like, is that like a breach of privacy or whatever, just so people could see who donated. We ended up deciding not to do that. We thought we had our acknowledgments and our thank yous covered. But to your point, Caitlin, that would have been a way to engage people who had been engaged, and then they could reach out. And yeah, I do think that's important, is again, creating those connections, closing the loop, circling back, being in touch. I think it's all absolutely worth it.
Yeah, for sure. I do have like a final question, but I want to open up space for questions to come in through chat. So feel free to type in your questions and send them. If we don't get any, that's great. That means we gave everybody all the information that they needed, but that also means we'll end a little early. But I mean, almost $19,000. Do you have any ideas of what you're going to do with it? Is it serving any emergency gaps? Do you have fun things that are coming up? What's kind of circling in your head around it?
Hmm, that wasn't a question we prepped for.
I know.
There are two things already that we focused on in the campaign that have already happened. One, we had a dog who needed a more complicated neuter than normal. So
Mm,
he's like a 8 pound, very small dog, but his neuter was $1,200, I believe, because he needed to have extra stuff done. So yeah, I don't want to say it out loud. It's people might think it's gross. But we were able to then like post on social, hey, he got his neuter and special stuff done. And then we focus on another dog who has some internal stuff going on, and she's
Yeah,
had appointments since then. Not figured out, but we
yeah,
at
yeah.
least were able to say this happened.
Yeah.
that's great.
And they
That's
don't,
awesome.
they don't add up to
Yeah.
$19,000. But yeah, if there's another one, it would be nice to get another one. But yeah, hitting on those actual stories that we used to help inspire people with this call to action, I think, yeah, that kind of hits
Mhm.
home, like we are actually using the money for what we said we would.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, we have a lot of cases that are super resource intensive, but just don't make good stories.
Yeah.
And I'm sure everyone on this webinar has that situation. And so we strategize about which stories we tell, because we don't have the time to tell every story, unfortunately. And so, yeah, we picked going into the campaign, we picked a few that we felt like could be effective, and also we could have follow up and close the loop on happy endings, essentially.
That's great.
Mhm.
Closing the loop on happy endings, that's perfect.
Mhm.
I assume that summer is kind of one of your busier seasons, just being outside with animals and stuff like that. Do you have any fun things coming up for SOS that people should know about?
Oh, thank you. So actually, summers are a little light.
Oh,
The need is always there, but we are super reliant on volunteers. We have one paid staff, which is me, and everyone else that does, our heavy lifting is a volunteer. And that goes for foster homes too. And a lot of people travel or their schedule's uncertain in the summer. Same thing with adopters. Adopters are typically not looking to adopt in the summer. So actually adoptions are down. We have to keep the number of dogs in our program down because they're just not moving. So actually summers are slower for us, though like I said, the need is as big as ever. Um, but we do have some fun things planned. We have our birthday party, our annual birthday party. We invite all of our adopters back as well as our volunteers. The dogs are welcome back too that they adopted, as well as any brothers or sisters in their household. It's always a really fun event because we get to see the dogs back. Some of them, are now like 10, some of them are like 13, 15 years old now, and we get to see them. Yeah, and they're doing great. um, and all the volunteers that were involved in that adoption get to see them. That's really fun. That's at our store in Wakefield. The public is also welcome. We're going to have facilitated dog walks around the neighborhood by our training partners. We're also going to have bobbing for dead fish in like a kiddie pool for the dogs. They love it. We'll have also like a play zone for the dogs. We've got some agility equipment, some sprinkler pads. We're going to be adding a fun event. We're going to be adding a tie-dye SOS t-shirt activity to that event. So that'll be fun. That is June 21st. So that's everyone is welcome, like I said, and it's going to be at the store. Which, if you haven't been to our store and you have a dog or a cat, we have everything that you could need. And like I said, all the profits go back to the rescue. So please stop in. If you recently adopted, we have an amazing adoption bundle for you from anywhere, any rescue, any shelter, not just SOS. So we'd love for you to stop in and tell us about your new buddy. We have a volunteer party coming up, a volunteer appreciation party that's going to be mostly focused on the tie dyeing. We're doing that there too. Trish, did you think of something?
Super Dog Adoption Day.
Super Dog Adoption Day. So that's coming up. That's May 10th. That
Mhm.
is an activity that we are participating in. We're one of multiple rescues and
12.
shelters. 12. Okay, 12 this
Hmm.
year. It's at Water Fire Art Center in Providence. It's all indoors. There will be up to 300 dogs to select from. And it's just a big day of adoptions and happy endings. So we'll be there. That's May 10th. The doors open at 10 for the golden ticket holders, and then for the general public at noon, and it goes till 4. So those are two fun events coming up.
that's great. When the Alliance team first joined, our executive director, Nancy Walensky, which is also involved with Save One Soul, Save Our Soul, took us to babysit some dogs that were going to be involved in that adoption day. And spending 2 hours with puppies was just like really, really good. And I think that given the state of affairs that we're all currently living in the nonprofit sector and just in the world in general,
Mhm.
if you can all make it out to play with some puppies all day, I think it would be really good for our mental health.
Yeah.
Um, so thank you both so much for being here, for talking about your success, and giving kind of a realistic view on it, that it does not all happen planned out in advance and as we want it to, but that it can happen, which is really great. I am going to put a link to a survey in the chat really quickly. This is a post 401 Give survey for you all to fill out on the call, and feel free to pass it along to others that you know that have participated in 401 Gives. We make improvements based on the feedback that you all give us year after year. We do our best to think, but nothing about us without us. And so we want to make sure that you all give us the feedback that we need to move forward. As always, if you have any questions about your 401 Gives campaigns, you can email me at the 401 Gives email or at my personal email, my work email, my first name dot last name at unitedwayri.org. It is never too early to meet and talk about 401 Gives. I am happy to sit one-on-one to have technical assistance meetings, to talk through the profile, talk about your campaigns, and get those wheels greased and going. This recording will be up on the YouTube channel in like 1 to 3 days or so, and the slides will also be available. Thank you both so much for being here, and I hope that everyone has a great day. Thank you all.
Thank you.